Okay, fourth grade. Today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be practicing our watercolor mixing today on a small practice sheet. Everybody's practice sheet is going to have the exact same pattern. When you go to do yours next week, the shapes will be whatever object you chose to draw, and you'll actually be able to place them on the paper in any way that you want. The reason why we're doing the practice is last year we did this project for the first time, and a lot of kids struggled with the idea of overlapping objects. So my picture has circles that overlap on top of other circles. So what we'll be doing today is we'll be painting each circle one color, and whatever colors are on either side of the overlap will get mixed together. And we're gonna do all our color mixing on the paper. I know that there's a lot of different ways to do color mixing with watercolors. We're just gonna do on paper color mixing for today. So today everybody has the exact same worksheet, exact same example, and we're all going to use the exact same colors. So you're gonna use the same colors that I'm using for this. When you go to do your own picture, you'll be able to choose your own colors. So to start off, for this project to work best, I'm going to have you select analogous colors. Analogous colors are...
An analogous color scheme is made up of 2 to 4 colors sitting next to each other on the color wheel. These are just a few examples of analogous color schemes.
So for our practice one, the analogous colors that I want you to be working with are going to be yellow, green, and blue. They're right next to each other on the color wheel. I know that sometimes analogous colors can be 4, they can be 2. Today we're going to work with 3. So we're going to work with yellow, green, and blue. For watercolor painting, we'll need a container of water. You'll have your paint kits and your paint brush. There are lots of different ways to paint with these types of watercolor paints. I'm just going to show you the way that I find easiest, and hopefully during this process you'll understand why, and hopefully it'll make sense and be something that you'll be able to use not only this year but at home when you're painting by yourself. So we know that the colors that we're going to use today are yellow, green, and blue, and whenever we're coloring solid shapes, I always like to start off with my lightest color first. And the reason why I like to do that is because then I don't have to worry about yellow changing my green or my blue a different color. If we were to start with blue or green and then go towards our yellow, if our brush is not cleaned properly or our water is dirty, our yellow will not be pure yellow and it'll start changing colors. Likewise, it'll keep our water nice and clean. Okay, yellow is much weaker than green and blue, so if we start off there, it doesn't matter if there's yellow water, that water will not change the color as we move into darker values. Now, my picture has been outlined with black. You're not going to do that. I just did that because it's easier to see in the video. So we're going to start with our first circle closest to me, and I notice that it is overlapped twice, once here and once here. We're not going to be painting in those colors right now. So I'm focused on the inside of my circle, and I'm starting with yellow first. So the way I load up my brush is I get it wet, I put it on top of my yellow, and I like to keep track of how many spins because it'll keep my colors consistent. So I want to load this brush up with a lot of pigment. It'll make my color brighter and more saturated. So I'll go to the top and I'll go once, twice, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now anytime that I use yellow, If I spin it 10 times, I know that the yellow is going to look exactly the same in every single shape that I go ahead and paint. Please remember that when we're painting or coloring in a shape, we're going to want to go around the outside first. The main reason why I ask elementary students to outline their shape first is it helps us stay inside of the lines, which especially in kindergarten, first and second grade is important when we're starting to learn how to control our utensils, and our utensils for this are paints and paintbrushes. Now it creates a nice thick border, and it's going to be much easier for me to stay inside the lines. So I'm just going to continue getting more paint, spinning it around 10 times to keep my color consistent. Remember, when we paint, we pull, lift, pull, lift, pull, lift. We don't want to scrub back and forth. It'll ruin our brush, which will make it harder in the end to paint inside of the lines. One thing you're going to notice while I'm painting is sometimes I'll be going into the water and sometimes I won't. If my paint starts to get a deep puddle inside of it, I no longer need any more water. Once the paint is wet and once there's standing water, and I like to tell kindergarten and first graders especially, if an ant were crawling across and it jumped into your paint, if it would make a splash, then you have too much water in your pan. So you no longer need to dip it in your bowl. You can just go and skip that step and go right back into the paint until it starts to dry out. Then you'll need more water. So I'm done with my yellow, and again, I'm leaving the two areas where another circle is overlapping. So whenever a circle is on top of another circle, it's going to create a new shape, and we're going to leave that alone. So I'm only painting this. I'm going to go to my next circle and I'm going to switch the color. I don't want to go yellow and yellow because later when we mix those, it's just going to give you yellow. So we want to pick another color in our analogous color scheme, and I like to just go from lightest to medium to dark. So I'm going to go to green next. Please make sure that when you are washing your brush, you actually want to scrub the hairs on the bottom of the cup. Not hard, but you kind of want to paint the bottom of the cup so that the bristles are getting moved around, just like if you were washing your hair and you were scrubbing with your fingernails. So the bottom of the cup is kind of the fingernails, and we're just massaging the brush and making sure we're getting as much of the yellow out as we can. So again, I'm going to move on to my second one. I'm going to change colors to green, and I'm only doing the part of the circle that is not overlapping. So just like our first one, this circle is overlapped twice, once here and once here. So I'm only going to be painting the middle of my circle green, starting with the outside edge first. I'm going to go ahead and spin it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And again, you can pick as many as you want. 10 seems to be a really good number for me. It loads the brush up. I get a really nice, vibrant, saturated color. If you start doing less, you're going to find that your color is muted. It's not going to be as bright or as saturated. So 10 seems to work out well. Doing 20, 30, 40 spins is just wasting paint. So 10, 15 max would be a good number of spins for a solid color. Once you're done outlining, then we can go ahead and fill it in. Please remember, we're doing the exact same colors for this practice because I want to make sure that everybody understands that we are color mixing where our shapes are overlapping. And if everybody's picking different colors, it's going to be harder to follow along for this very small example. Once you're done, you'll notice again that we're leaving our overlapping sections alone. Okay, so I have 4 shapes and I have 3 colors. So I know that if I keep going clockwise and do yellow, green, and then blue, my next color in that pattern would be yellow, and we don't want to do the same color next to the same color. So instead of going green, blue, I'm going to go yellow, blue, and then we'll go back to yellow up here at the top. So I'm going to clean my brush off once again, massaging the brush on the bottom of the cup. I'm going to move to my third analogous color, my darkest, and I'm only going to do the inside of this circle. So now that I've gone up the ladder of colors and I went from yellow, green, blue in my analogous color scheme, again, I don't want to put green next to green and I don't want to put blue next to blue. So my next color choice would be yellow. And hopefully if you've been paying attention, you would say, but Mr. O, now you're going from blue to yellow. You are going from the darkest to the lightest color. And that would be a mistake that I just made. So after we're done doing this sheet, when you go to work on yours, make sure that if you are using yellow, you want to do your yellow everywhere. And then move on to green, and then do green everywhere. And then blue everywhere. So one of the things that we'll work on quickly before you actually start painting your project is we'll do just a mini color scheme worksheet so you can practice your colors with markers or colored pencils before we break out the paints. And that'll help eliminate mistakes like I just made, because now I'm going to get my water extremely dirty with this blue and green, and I'll have to be going into my yellow. Once your brush is clean, we're going to go ahead and paint our last circle in yellow, starting by outlining. We'll wash our brush one last time, and then we're going to talk about the overlapping part, the color mixing that we're going to do on the paper.